trade union leaders in Trinidad and Tobago had a march recently. That would be Wednesday, the 1st of September. They had a march from Aranjuez to Port of Spain to signal their displeasure with the direction the government is taking the country in. And as usual, many of the things that the government is doing, they are seeing it and taking it as a personal attack on the trade unions. And the trade unions are putting themselves there as a representative of all the common men in the country. And all the attacks against the common men or the commoners, the common people, are seen as attacks also on the trade unions. It's nearly like the trade unions and the politicians don't learn. They always seem to be partners at one time when it's convenient to each other, and then they will throw each other to the dogs when they get the opportunity. So when the politicians are in opposition, they hang tight with the trade unionists, because what better way to raise an uproar than some trade unionists? You can get a crowd at will. They are really good at this protesting business, so you hang tight with them. The government is not doing good, and then when you're in the government, it's the opposite all again. And the trade unionists also, they seem to play the politics just as much too, because if you look at it, the trade unionists are wealthy, the government officials, the politicians are wealthy, and it's just the common people, the people who are paying their union dues, who are the less wealthy people. So you could, if I didn't know better, it could nearly seem like the trade unionists and the politicians are in one grand scheme together, playing a game, dancing with each other to merely entertain people and distract them. But I know better than that. I know obviously that's not it. But sometimes still, there's a kind of way, there's a concept where you evaluate the conclusion, you evaluate the result of something to ascertain what was the purpose of it. So sometimes people could be very skilled at clouding and making it difficult to really figure out what they're doing and what the purpose of what they're doing is. Why are they doing this? Look at the result. Generally, you could kind of work your way back from the result. So, for example, with the United States over in Afghanistan, when I look at the result there, and I see the result is that they went into a place with a group of people who had a certain belief and ran their country a certain way, and they had weapons of, let's call the weapon level, they had level 2. Now they left 20 years later, the people have the same beliefs, they are going to run the country very likely the same way, just now with level 200 weapons. If that's the result, it makes me wonder if that was the purpose in the first place. And it goes down the conspiratorial side, but I don't think it's necessarily that conspiratorial when you think about it. In Trinidad and Tobago, we understand very well the relationship between politicians and contractors. So if you expand that out to a military contractor who could see themselves getting a shore contract for 20 years for billions of dollars in military equipment, that you might just happen to leave in the country afterwards, so you may need to replenish it and get back some more anyway. I could see it. If Trinidad and Tobago had the resources and the need, I could see some of our contractors and our politicians getting really, really good into this military business. We like contracts. It's a good thing Trinidad too small for that. Anyway, I was distracted there. We're not talking about the United States and Afghanistan and their policy. We're talking about our trade unionists down here. If you haven't clicked the like button on this video yet, please do click that like button. Make sure it's selected and drop a comment. Tell me what you think about the topic of the day. Tell me what you think about the news. Tell me a new topic that you'd like to see me cover. Tell me something interesting you saw. My email is supposed to be in the description, I believe, also. And my DMs are open on all platforms. feel free to message. So, economic and social slavery. Trade union execs in March to tackle. Dozens of trade union members walked from Aranjuez to Port of Spain yesterday to protest government policies and continued extensions of the state of emergency. The groups met around 9:30 a.m. at the Western Main Road, at the western end of the Aranjuez Savannah, and walked along the Eastern Main Road and then throughout the capital before coming to a stop at Woodford Square. In keeping with COVID guidelines, the numbers were limited to only the executive members of the respective unions, which included the OWTU, All Workers Trade Union, and the National Trade Union Center, NATOC, among others. Listen, that part of it, I like that idea. Personally, I like that idea. Let the leaders walk in the sun and show their real fervor for the interest of the worker. I had no problem with that part. OWTU President Ansel Roger said the walk was deemed necessary, as it was the only way the unions believed they could represent the voices of the people under the current settings. The state of emergency has limited not just our movement, but our freedom of speech in the ways we would like to. We are noticing the things in place and how many state organizations are being privatized and how the Prime Minister has already begun to try to justify an increase of fuel costs. Now, I watch these trade union leaders and I watch how they meld those things into one. They speak about privatizing things and the increase in fuel costs. Now, personally, I find a lot of the problems we face in Trinidad and Tobago is because a lot of things are in too much control of the public. And then some of these unions, not all, some of these unions would get there and ensure that all the workers, whether they are efficient or not, ensure that none of them can be fired. So whatever the industry is tagging along a heavy weight of additional workers that cannot be lost because these unions are very good at what they do. So I watch how he ties in that. Therefore, we expect, this is Roger continuing here, therefore we expect that this budget coming may be the most draconian budget ever experienced in the history of this country. Hyperbole much. Because we are saying that our economic shortfalls over the last year is because of how they have run the country. And therefore it is not fair that they put things in place to increase fuel, increase food costs, increase the cost of living, all while they remain high and comfortable in their seats of power, he said. Now, I agree to some extent. I don't like the idea of the government putting things in place that harms the population while they are comfortable and excluded from the measures such as that. So, for example, for those who were listening for a little while to what I've been speaking about, you would have remembered when I did quite a few videos on the government ministers and their tax exemptions, and no one has convinced me otherwise. I still do not like it. I still do not agree with it. There's no justification that could stand up logically to me. I have yet to see it. Let me put it like that. But in this case, as much criticisms and as critical as you can be of the government to make it seem like Trinidad is in some uniquely bad position in the world right now is dishonest. And I think that kind of dishonesty is what makes people take a lot of the entirety of this group less seriously. They are lumped into the same group with the politicians. If you look right now at many different places in the world, just take nearly a random pick, and you look closely at the news coming out of that area, you wouldn't want to be there. Right now in Trinidad and Tobago, we had 39 Venezuelans, I believe it was, yes, 39 Venezuelan men, women, children held on arrival in Chaguaramas. 39 Venezuelans, 18 men, 9 women, 8 girls, and 4 boys were detained on Tuesday for attempting to enter the country illegally. Now, if Trinidad was the torture chamber that some people would like to make it out to be, people wouldn't be attempting to sneak into this little tiny torture chamber. Venezuela is a mainland. People could walk across from Venezuela to other areas. They are trying to get to Trinidad because, as bad as some things might be, they aren't that bad yet. And let me don't even add in the yet. They aren't that bad. And hopefully they'll never be that bad. And I think if you look at Trinidad and Tobago with a relative eye, you don't look at Trinidad with only the critical eye, you look at Trinidad with a relative eye, weigh it in balance with other nations around the world. We are still doing pretty good. We are still doing pretty good. Even the mix-up that it has right now about the reopening of schools. How exactly are we going to do this? I spoke about yesterday the opposition leader speaking negatively on why the PNM government stopped the laptop program. But even now, there are devices being distributed to students still, and that's still a testament to something in Trinidad and Tobago, because there are many countries, there are many other places that they would be dreaming of getting things like that done. Education Minister says 2,000 devices to be distributed to needy students. Education Minister Dr. Nyan Gatsby-Dali says an additional 2,000 devices will be distributed to needy students this week. Days before the start of the new school term, Gatsby-Dali said a further 2,500 applicants will be processed while the 2,000 devices are distributed. So things are being done. There are problems, but there needs to be a kind of relative balance. Oh, look out around the Caribbean. Right now in Guyana, a previous video, I spoke about one of the Delta strain patients that came into Trinidad. They came over from Guyana, and I was wondering, well, if they came from Guyana, that means Guyana has the Delta strain. How exactly is Guyana doing? And I checked. Guyana isn't exactly doing that well. Again, you have to have some relative balance. Jamaica has no movement days. I believe it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of the week. No movement. Their curfew begins at 7 p.m. and lasts all night till 5. And their hospitals are still reaching close to being overrun. They are still struggling to get the vaccination rollout there. So perspective. As critical as you want to be, the exaggerated style of it makes it not just exaggerated, it makes it dishonest if we're being honest. Over in Guyana, COVID-19 vaccinations crucial as Guyana experiences Delta surge. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony has said that getting the life-saving COVID-19 vaccines is crucial since Guyana is experiencing a surge in COVID-19 infections, hospitalizations, and deaths. Now, the scary part of this over in Guyana is further down in this article, because I was trying to figure out specifically pertaining to the Delta strain. How are they doing with the Delta strain? Now, the problem they have over in Guyana is they don't exactly have the tests to prove the Delta strain. Guyana has been unable to definitively confirm the presence of any variant due to a lack of scientific testing. But previously, the health minister explained that the local health authorities are assuming the presence of different variants due to the clinical data they have gathered. Now, over in Trinidad, some people are questioning, how do we know we have the Delta strain? Do we even have tests to prove this? And we do. We cannot test everyone, but we are actually testing some people. We have that tests. In Guyana, they don't. They are assuming which strain it is they're battling. And granted, right now with the way COVID is set up, I'm not sure if there's much of a difference, much of a practical difference, especially to a poorer country on battling COVID, whether it's the original or another strain. You're aiming at basically the same thing either way. But over in Guyana, they don't even know for sure which strain it is they have. And they are having a surge of it. And remember, the Delta strain is the one that becomes a little more scary because, generally speaking, you're seeing younger people affected more. So, perspective. And further on top of all of this, the Attorney General, I believe it was since Monday, cleared the air also that as if you're following my content, you know I don't fully agree with the state of emergency, but let me be the one to defend it where it can be defended. This state of emergency is not the same kind where you cannot actually take to the streets, because as we saw, people did take to the streets. So it doesn't limit that side. And for the OWTU leader to say they're limiting our freedom of speech and we cannot speak about the problems, that's actually not true. I'm speaking about what I want to speak about every day, and you're listening. And the government of Trinidad and Tobago, no member of the People's National Movement has stopped me yet. So the freedom of speech may be limited in some quarters, I guess, but I don't think it's that limited. Be critical where it makes sense to be critical. Otherwise, it's the same criticism I have of our opposition, which, to be fair to them, the last video I made saw that they came better. But one of the criticisms I always have of them is you need to be honest in the critique and in pointing out the problem. Otherwise, people can throw out the entirety of what it is you're pointing at, because it seems like the entirety of the thing loses merit. You leave a large gap in your critique, and people can look at it and see, listen, you're saying that X is the case, but we can all see it's not actually an X, it's a Y, so we can nearly throw out everything you have to say. And that to me is what it seems like the unions do very regularly. They overshoot their shot. They overplay their hand, and it makes the actual message that they may have, that an actual issue they may have to raise, it could dilute the issue. In an attempt to make the issue seem stronger, you actually dilute the issue. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see these topics that I presented here. Tell me, what do you think? Drop a comment. I hope you were informed or entertained. And that's all I have for now. I'll see you again tomorrow.
And you feel the music, rising with the time.